Welcome to the Smoke Learning channel. This set of videos focus on tracking. Previously, you saw how to perform a single point position track using either sequence layers or the Action 3D compositor. Now let's step this up a bit and examine two-point tracking, which allows you to track the position, scale, and rotation of a background. If you would like to follow along, please click the link in the YouTube description to download the media. If you are watching the podcast version of this video, then type the link displayed in your internet browser. For this example, we have a shot of a reversing car and we will replace the license plate. This is a very common task which is done for a variety of reasons. I chose this shot because it contains position, rotation, and scale changes over time that could not be addressed with the single point track. There will also be a few tracking challenges that will help teach you some of the tools inside the stabilizer. Select the segment in the sequence, click the Effects button, and choose Create ConnectFX. In the ConnectFX node bin, drag out an action node and drop it into the connection. So the car source media node is going to be in the action background input. This will allow you to track it. Let's bring in our new license plate. Go to the media library and drag in the source clip. Select the action node and press Ctrl-N to add a new media input. Connect the fill and alpha from the license plate into the fill and alpha inputs of the media input node. Double-click on the action node to enter into the node controls. Hover over the ConnectFX schematic and press Escape to see the action schematic. Now to perform the two-point track, you use the same technique from the previous video. Switch to the action bin. Drag out an axis node and connect it into the existing branch. For clarification, rename the axis node to Track. With this axis node selected, switch to the Object menu. Coming to the stabilizer options, by default, it will only track position. Use the pull-down menus to tell the stabilizer to include rotation and scaling information. The INV or inverse option is for stabilization instead of tracking. Now go into the stabilizer. This time there are two trackers. Tracker 1 is mapped to 1 and Tracker 2 is mapped to 2 on your keyboard for easy switching. So let's position the trackers. Switch to Tracker 1 and move it to the left of the bumper. Switch to Tracker 2 and move that to the right of the bumper. Now with all the settings left to their defaults, press Analyze to start the track. Both trackers do not give a reliable track. The reason for this is because the defined tracking pattern, which was set at frame 1, has been changing over time. So if the pattern had remained the same throughout, the track would have been perfect. But tracking patterns naturally change because of the movement of the subject, camera, and other factors. So to cope with the changes in pattern, I am going to show you two potential solutions to the tracking challenges. First, switch the tracker selection to solo. This means we isolate the selected tracker and the other trackers are unaffected. With Tracker 1 selected, scroll slowly through the frames. At certain points, you might see the tracker boxes jump. Since the pattern changes over time, the tracker gets confused. So one solution is to find the last good keyframe on the track before the error and define that as the new tracking pattern. On the good frame, click Snap to define a new pattern from this point onwards. Click Analyze again, and the tracker will then pick up from the current frame and overwrite the previous keyframes. So the first solution is to snap the tracker to define a new pattern where needed. Let's look at the second solution. Press 2 to switch to the second tracker. This time, we will look at the fixed option. When fixed is on, the tracker will always keep referring to the original pattern at frame 1. To manually set a new reference pattern, we would click Snap like the previous example. However, if fixed is off, as the track is analyzed, the reference pattern is updated every frame. Ensure you are at frame 1 and press Analyze. So by updating the tracking pattern each frame can help you get around fairly tricky tracking patterns. This can certainly be used to create reliable tracks. However, be warned that the track can sometimes slip because the pattern updates every frame. I suggest starting with fixed on first. If that track fails, then try tracking with fixed off. A final point to mention is that you can stop in the middle of a track, snap, and then toggle between fixed on and fixed off. This will give you the best of both solutions with challenging tracks. Switch the tracker selection mode to selected and you can see both tracks again. Once you're happy with the result, exit the stabilizer back to action. So all the tracking keyframes are in the top axis labeled track. To reposition the license plate in the scene, select the axis below. If you didn't have this axis, you could just add it from the Action node bin. Shrink the layer quite a bit. At this point, you might want to zoom tight into the back of the car. Move the layer into position over the old license plate. Also, rotate it slightly to match the angle of the old plate. As for those small finishing touches, go to the Surface menu under the Image tab. Click the Diffuse Color pot and drop the brightness down to match the background. Now switch to the Media menu. Hold Option and drag the blur sliders to proportionately blur the license plate. And finally, switch to the Node Preferences menu and set the Software Anti-Aliasing to 4 samples. Scrub the time bar to check your result. Exit ConnectFX and render the segment. So 2-point tracks are the same as 1-point. But just remember you set up the stabilizer before going into it to perform these operations. Let's move on to the next example, where we'll do 4-point corner pinning for replacing screens and signs. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the Smoke Learning channel for future videos.